What's up guys, it's me Jeremy, and today I'm going to go over a question that needs to be considered way more often than it actually is. And that is, how long should my trade last? Let's get started. Now, when it comes to trading, the key thing that a lot of people don't think about is how long you want it to last. By properly controlling the length of trades in lane, you will find that you can actually win a trade in any matchup, even if you've been counterpicked. When you end a trade at an ideal moment, you maximize the damage you put onto your opponent while minimizing the damage that you receive. When it comes to knowing how long your trade should be, there are a couple of things to consider: your damage output, your crowd control, your opponent's damage output, and your opponent's crowd control. All four of these things play a key role in when you should end a trade. In an absolutely perfect trade, you want to get off all of your damage while avoiding all of your opponent's. But that really isn't going to happen unless your opponent is AFK. So you have to make a trade-off in at least one of those categories, and the sacrificing of each category creates a different situation. By sacrificing your damage output, you ensure that your trade is safe, as it will last the duration of your crowd control. You want to leave the trade when your CC runs out, ensuring that you take no damage in return. This type of trade will be pretty much free damage, but it will not be a lot of damage unless you want to take damage in return. This is an ideal trade for a melee bruiser or for a burst type caster. By sacrificing your crowd control, you will change the trade into a more poke situation. Since disengaging from both sides will be much easier, it will be harder to get your damage off, but also safer. This type of trade will be the fastest, as it often will last for only 1 or 2 attacks or spells, since you disengage immediately afterwards. This is an ideal trade for a high range caster or auto attacker. Now, if you wish to get your full damage output and crowd control off, this is where it becomes a little bit more tricky. Here you need to consider burst and sustained damage, that of both yours and your opponent's. A champion with mostly sustained damage wants to prolong the trade for as long as possible, while a burst champion wants to end a trade the instant that their burst damage has been dealt, or prolong their trade long enough for their cooldowns to come up a second time so that they can deal their burst damage again. This means that as a sustained damage champion, you want to end the trade about a second before the opponent's cooldowns come back up. And as a burst champion, you either want to end the trade immediately after your burst, or wait for a second round of cooldowns, then end the trade immediately after that. The burst versus sustained matchup is all about preventing the sustained damage by disengaging immediately after your burst has finished. The sustained damage versus the burst damage matchup is all about prolonging the sustained damage while avoiding the second round of the burst. And the burst versus the burst matchup is all about doing your burst as fast as possible and then disengaging immediately without giving your opponent a chance. But then we have the sustained versus the sustained matchup, and that's a bit tricky. When you're a sustained damage champion versus another sustained damage champion, you kind of need to turn it into a burst matchup. Every champion is going to have at least a little bit of a burst element, even if it's not a lot, simply due to cooldowns. You want to culminate the aspects from the 3 other situations and use that in the sustained versus the sustained matchup. You can end the trade after an ability or an auto attack, or prolong it after one of theirs. It can be difficult to significantly come out ahead in trades like this versus a good opponent, but it's definitely possible to come out a bit ahead in the sustained versus the sustained matchup using those tactics. Anyways, in general, you want to end the trade after your burst or right before your opponent's burst to maximize damage dealt while minimizing damage received. My name is Jeremy, and that's it for my video on when to end a trade. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to check out some of my others on the screen right now. I'd love if you could support me with a like, and make sure to subscribe for some more awesome content in the future if you enjoyed this video. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.